Hello everyone and welcome to AHS Countdown. I'm your host Reese Kinder, joined by my co-host James Tippins, and we got a huge matchup between the Auburn High Tigers and the Opelika Bulldogs. James, how you doing?
Yeah, Reese, and then they were four. We get to face our rival Opelika Bulldogs once again. This is set up to be pure cinema on Alabama 7A football.
Yeah, and I mean, faced them earlier in the year, beat them 17-10, but the Tigers coming off of a dominant performance against the Daphne Trojans last week, winning 40-0, but quarterback Casey Myers went down with an injury. But you know who stepped up yet again is J.D. Pate, the backup quarterback, coming in, doing a great job being able to get the Tigers the win, and they shine on the road. And then Opelika took care of business at home against Baker. They were able to win, and the Bulldogs are looking to beat their rivals tonight to even up to actually take the lead in the series. The Bulldogs are looking to do that. And now we're going to move to our game breakdown. We're going to highlight strengths first. And James, what are your strengths for Auburn Opelika tonight?
Yeah, Reese, for Auburn, and we've talked about it all season. This Auburn defense just wreaking havoc just all season long. They had 5 sacks last week just against the Daphne team. This D-line just all season have just proved to us why they're one of the best in 7A football. Eli Scott had 4 of the 5 sacks last week, So going into this game, the Auburn defense, will step up. I really expect them to, as they have all season, getting those sacks, pressuring the quarterback. So that's my strength for Auburn tonight. And then for Opelika, it's their run game. Running back C.J. Johnson is their workhorse back there. Averages 63 yards on the ground per game and has 9 touchdowns on the season. When we played them earlier, he had 95 yards and a touchdown against us. So Opelika really loves to run the ball, especially with their quarterback, Whit Cooper. He's kind of a dual threat guy, loves those little option plays. But yeah, giving it to that workhorse running back, C.J. Johnson, is what they love to do. And so I expect Opelika to do that a lot tonight. Yeah, and Auburn and Opelika, this is a huge rivalry game. This is going to be a 101st meeting between both teams. But like you mentioned, James, that D-line last week really showed up in Daphne. And we mentioned it last week on the show of how the defense was going to have a tough time being able to handle this high-powered offense, but they were able to do it. And then, Opelika, the run game for them, if they're able to get that going, this could be a high-scoring matchup considering what J.D. Pate did against Daphne. So really interested to see what those two teams can do with the key strengths you highlighted there. And then talking about weaknesses, though, Opelika, it's a tough secondary. We saw Opelika have struggles early when they faced Auburn. They threw a lot of interceptions in that first game. To Greg Williams, actually, was the linebacker there, and you saw he was able to get an interception. And then also B.J. McGee had some great coverages in that game, as well as Cortez Cook. So if Auburn's secondary is just, what they've been most of the season, then this Opelika team is going to have trouble considering they're having a sophomore quarterback play in this game, and it's going to be very hard playing in a loud environment like Duck Sanford Stadium. So Opelika is going to have to limit, the deep passes, maybe go to a little bit of an intermediate pass game. And then for Auburn, it's fast-paced offense. I mean, just straightforward. Vestavia Hills did it twice, actually. They came out hot start. Charlie Taft was able to, run all over Auburn in the first half, and then you saw Auburn was able to calm down a little bit, but that wasn't the case in the first matchup. And if Opelika comes out with a fast-paced offense, then it's going to be really hard for the Tigers to get momentum and even score. So, and it wears the defense out, so it's going to be very hard. But, yeah, those are my 2 weaknesses for tonight's game. And now we're going to move to key players to look out for tonight. And, James, who's your key player? Yeah, Reese, tonight it's B.J. McGee, the senior leader defensive back. He's the lockdown corner for Auburn. He usually matches up with the opponent's wide receiver 1. Last week he had a couple pass deflections, whether it's in zone man coverage or coming off edge with a blitz. B.J. McGee's just been everywhere for this Tigers defense, and I expect him to carry that into tonight.
Yeah, and B.J. McGee, like I mentioned earlier, for my weaknesses, if Auburn's secondary is really good, B.J. McGee's going to be one of those guys to make those plays. But, folks, we're going to move to a quick commercial break, but when we come back, we'll have the player spotlight.
Play hard, play to win. But when sports injuries occur, you can rely on Encore. Our professional team treats all types of sports-related injuries for athletes of all ages. Our licensed therapists work closely with the patient, your family, and physician to get you back into action quickly and safely. At Encore, we love to see you move. Log on to EncoreRehab.com for a location near you.
Hello everyone and welcome back to AHS Countdown. We're now going to move to the player spotlight segment. And James, who's on your player spotlight tonight?
Yeah, Reese, tonight we hit on it earlier, but it's Eli Scott. 4 sacks versus Daphne last week. Just a breakout game. The team in total had 5, so Eli Scott putting more than half of those sacks up. But even got a shout out from Bama Preps as a player spotlight in the playoffs last week. So Eli Scott, huge game last week. Also earlier in the season, he had 2 sacks versus Opelika. So if that's a telltale sign to what's going to happen tonight, Eli Scott's going to get to that quarterback early and often.
Yeah, and Eli Scott has had a really good playoff so far against most of these teams we've played. Vestavia Hill's a great game. Daphne was a great game. And I feel like this Opelika game will be good as well against his rivals. But we are now going to send it over to our studio host, Trip Upton with AHS Bracketology. But when we come back, we'll have our game picks.
Hello and welcome to Auburn High School Bracketology in conjunction this week once again with AHS Countdown. My name is Trip Upton and it is time for some Final Four action in 7A. We still have some quarterfinal action in 6A through 1A, and then AISA has their championship games tonight as we're filming this. By the time you watch it, those scores will be final. Make sure to check those out either on our friends AL Preps or the Alabama High School Football Historical Society. Those two have been big helps in kind of like me getting a lot of my data and info for that. But let's take a look now at the bracket. What's been going on? What happened last week in 7A, you might ask? First, the Auburn Tigers went down to Daphne and blew out the Trojans, winning that one 40-0. Central Phoenix City, they were close for a half, but were able to take care of business against the Fairhope Pirates. The Opelika Bulldogs won at home against the Baker Hornets, and the Thompson High School Warriors beat the Mary Montgomery High School Vikings. So Mobile going 0-4 in the second round as I predicted, and Opelika winning as I predicted. So I kind of have to pat myself on the back. Got to celebrate your wins there as you can. But let's take a look now at the bracket and see what's going on in first 6A. We're going to be breaking down the all last 4 games of the 6A bracket. First, we have the Pike Road Patriots taking on the Saraland Spartans. Pike Road, obviously they won their game last week. They are a team that we've been following just south of Montgomery. And this is actually a pretty big rivalry game in 6A. And you might be wondering, Saraland's in Mobile, Pike Road's in Alabama, how is it a rivalry game? They've played the past 2 years in the semifinals. So they're meeting around earlier this year. Saraland 2-0 in those games. They beat the Pike Road Patriots 47-12 in 2024. And then they were able to win 46-7, even bigger win in the 2023 semis. Only 3 losses in the past 4 years for Saraland. So the Saraland Spartans are one of the best teams in 6A. One of the best teams in the state of Alabama. Players like Ryan Williams have come and dominated the state of Alabama on the collegiate level. So Saraland, a young program surprisingly, but they played really well. Moving a little bit closer, we have the Benjamin Russell Wildcats. They'll be playing a team we've talked about, I think, 3 times now in the Hueytown Golden Gophers. Benjamin Russell is on their longest program winning streak currently. Heading into this one, they are undefeated. And Hueytown, on the complete opposite end of that, they came into the playoffs 5-5, still won their region, kind of like a Sparkman, where it was a region where everyone was close, everyone was beating everybody, but the Golden Gophers came out with the win in that region. They're still a good team. They still have a lot of history recently in 6A, making playoffs and winning games. I think that's going to be a close game, but I think Benjamin Russell, picks up a win and moves into the Final Four for 6A. Looking across the bracket now at the Clay Charkville Cougars, they take on the Homewood Patriots. Clay Charkville, according to a lot of statistics, is the top-ranked team in the state of Alabama. They beat the Thompson Warriors, who are one of the best teams in the state. This past fall, Clay Chartville won that game from 6A, playing a 7A. Homewood's only loss, though, Homewood is still a good team. The Patriots' only loss is to an OT miracle 2-point conversion play, which you've probably all seen. If not, look it up. It's incredible. It was like a Hail Mary on a 2-point conversion to rival Mountain Brook. So they are only really one loss, and you could even say they should be undefeated right now. So good stuff for the Homewood Patriots. I think Clay Chartville wins that game. I think Clay Chartville is on a war path to state, especially now that Parker is out of the playoffs. Moving down to the last game in 6A, we have the Mountain Brook Spartans we just mentioned. They take on the Muscle Shoals Trojans. A little bit of Mediterranean warfare between the Spartans and the Trojans. Muscle Shoals defense is the strength of their team. They have yet to allow 20 points. That's so impressive, right? Especially, it's kind of like what that Auburn University defense looked like this year until they played Vanderbilt, funny enough. But Mountain Brook is a good offense. When they score 20 plus, they're 9-0. This is going to be really a game to see who gets to 20 points first. If Mountain Brook is able to get 20 points, I think they win that game. If Muscle Shoals can hold them, I think they win that game. I know that's kind of like a stat where it's like, well, obviously, 20 points is not really hard to clear for a lot of teams. But against the Muscle Shoals Trojans, they 100% are. And if it comes down to it in the fourth quarter, Mountain Brook 2-0 in overtime. Now looking down at 5A, we have a team we've talked about a lot, the Catholic Montgomery Knights. They take on the Williamson Lions. Williamson won a game 100-0. Full stop. That offense is incredible. It was against 0-10 Murphy, who is in 6A. But 100-0, it sounds like a Madden Mobile score. They are really, really good. But they haven't had on the road. Catholic is 4-1 at home. Their only loss at home is to Eufaula. Williamson did beat them in the first round. So I'm going to roll with the Williamson Lions here. I think they set up a big semifinal rematch against their rival, the Viger Wolves. And Viger is our next game. They take on the Central Clay County Volunteers, another Central. I know we can't stop talking about Central for some reason. Viger has scored 40 plus in back-to-back games. Their offense is clicking right now, but so is the Triple C. Central Clay County has held teams defensively less than 10 points 6 times. They are 2-0 in playoffs because they've held their opponents to less than 10 points. It's going to be a classic tale. An unstoppable force is meeting an immovable object in 5A, and I think Viger wins this one. I think the defense wins championships, and Central Clay County can 100% do that. But I think Viger will be motivated and get a rematch. Williams and Viger, one of the best rivalries in the state of Alabama coming out of Mobile. Part 2 in the playoffs, reminding me a lot of Auburn Opelika. Our last game in 5A is a team that Auburn fans know very well, the Moody Blue Devils. Moody taking on Briarwood Christian. The Blue Devils, only 2 losses on the season. Those are to Auburn and Gainesville, Georgia, so have not lost to a team in 5A. They host the Briarwood Lions. Moody, when scoring less than 30 points, is 1-2. They have to be able to score because when they score 30 plus, they're 9-0. It's just fact of the matter. If they can get to that 30 number, they're going to be able to win. Briarwood, though, they beat Leeds 28-3 round 1. Falcons fans might want to take a breather after hearing that score. Moody beat them 25-22 in the regular season. Moody and Leeds, big rivals. So I'm not going to excuse Moody beating them by less, because it's a rivalry game. You know, look at Auburn Opelika. That game's always close. Hopefully it's not close and Auburn wins this week. But Moody Leeds rivalry game. That's why that game was only a 3-point game. I think Moody finds form against Briarwood and is able to pick up a big win there against the Lions. Moving now, actually staying in 5A, we have one last matchup between the Fairview Aggies and the Scottsboro Wildcats. Scottsboro's offense is clicking right now. They scored 40 back-to-back games in the playoffs, but Fairview can play ball too. They've scored 40 plus 7 times this season. So out of the 12 games they've played, maybe 13 games they've played, They've scored over half of those times. That's incredible numbers for the Aggies. If I had to say, I think that Fairview, actually the home team, is going to get it done. The Aggies knock off the Wildcats in that one. So 5A up for grabs. I think really, if I had to predict, it's going to be Viger v. Williamson, the Final Four, against Moody. I think the Blue Devils trying to get back to the state championship game, but win it this year. Moving on down to 4A, we're going to be covering 2 games for each of those going throughout. We covered every other game above us. The St. Michael Cardinals from Mobile, Gunnar Rivers and Phil Rivers taking on the Bullock County Hornets. Bullock County has had their first 2 playoff wins in program history this year. So shout out the Hornets for doing that. They will play Gunnar Rivers, who has scored 40-plus points 11 times. And that's in one of the tougher regions in 4A with rival Jackson. So that's going to be an incredibly offensive game. I think St. Michael's wins that one and ends Bullock County's Cinderella run, even though they have like an Alabama State plus Boston College logo. I think it's kind of weird. Moving to our other game in 4A, it's the Jackson Aggies, Landon Duckworth, South Carolina commit. They take on the W.S. Neal Eagles. The Eagles are lost in the regular season to Jackson. These are 2 teams from the same region. The Aggies knocked off the Eagles 30-7. I think that that's pretty self-explanatory with the amount of talent on Jackson. I think they get it done and set up a rematch against another region team in St. Michael's in the Final Four to go to Birmingham to represent 4A. Now moving down to 3A, we have the Montgomery Academy Eagles heading on the road to fight on against the Bayside Academy Admirals. Bayside Academy has held opponents less than 20 points 11 times. That's a vast majority of their games. Bayside, a team to watch out for. Their defense, just physical. They're going to be able to compete and they're going to try and win. But Montgomery Academy, again, they have an offense. They've scored 35 plus in 10 games. So I'm very curious what streak breaks. Is it that less than 20 points or is it that 35 plus? Like, of course, they can always be in the middle. But I mean, it's going to be just an insanely good game. And I think I'm going to ride with Montgomery Academy. They knocked off Lee Scott last week. So they are an area team against Bayside, who's a little closer to Mobile. I think Montgomery Academy and the Eagles are able to pull out the winner and move to the Final Four. Staying in 3A as well, it is the Glenwood Gators from Smith Station, Phoenix City, right across the street from Smith Station, but technically are in Phoenix City. They will head on the road, the Gators, heading down to Southside Selma against the Panthers. And the Panthers have a guy, quarterback Cole Moody. Is for Southside Selma. I'm going to read you this stat line. I'm going to look to make sure I don't get it wrong, so I apologize for not making eye contact. Has 4,801 yards and 55 touchdowns. The kid is not even in high school yet. I believe he is the son of the head coach at Southside Selma, and I believe he's a 7th or 8th grader. We're having middle schoolers throw for almost 5,000 yards and 60 touchdowns. Okay, their offense is going to be tough. Glenwood is 4-2 on the road, so they are road warriors, but I just think, God bless Glenwood. I think the Panthers set up a big game and win this one and will take on probably Montgomery Academy. Moving on now down to 2A, it is the Lynette Panthers, a team we've covered since the beginning. They head on the road this time against the Laverne Tigers. Laverne averages 54 points a game. A just explosive offense out from here. Lynette, though, only gives up 8.2 points per game. So it's going to be again, an unstoppable force, an immovable object. Lynette's tough-nosed defense. Defense does travel, but at home, Laverne's offense trying to maybe put up another 50 points. I don't think they get to 50 points. I think Lynette is able to slow them down and could potentially pick up a big win. It might not be held them to 8 points, but it might be somewhere in the 20s, maybe somewhere in the 30s. Lynette can score too. I'm going to roll with the regional Panthers to knock off and win against Laverne and go to the Final Four. Another local team, the Reeltown Rebels, will head on the road this week. They take on the Providence Christian Eagles. Providence Christian at home. They knocked off Lochapoka in overtime last week. And PC only gives up 13.7 points per game in wins. So when their defense is clicking, they win. When losses, though, it's 30.3. So if Providence defense can come to play, they're going to win that game. Reeltown did beat Lochapoka earlier this season. They hung 70 on the Indians. Meanwhile, PC only did 17-14 in overtime. I think that Reeltown gets revenge for our Lochapoka Indians. They get a big win in Reeltown v. Lynette, 2 regional teams in the Final Four to play to go to Birmingham. Moving on now down to 1A, it's Wadley. And Wadley, the defending champs, they've won 24 in a row, longest win streak in the state of Alabama. They will host the Hubbardville Lions, and Hubbardville has scored 50 plus 8 times this season. Their offense is really, really good. But against a team like Wadley, a team that is just, they've done this before. They have playoff pose, playoff caliber team. And I know you could say, well, everyone left in the playoffs probably does. I mean, they're in the 3rd round, especially for 1A through 6A. But Wadley's just a whole nother animal. They went and destroyed Lee Scott earlier this year, who is 2 classifications up. I'm rolling with Wadley. I think they pull out the win in this one. Our last look in at 1A is the Maplesville Red Devils. They will take on the Southern Choctaw Indians. Maplesville has scored 40 plus 10 times this season, so that offense, the Red Devils, looking really, really good thus far. Meanwhile, Southern Choctaw has beat opponents, and in the first 6 games of the season, 36.3-6. But looking at the end of the season, the average has dipped down 18.5 to 23 in the last 4 games of the regular season. So something changed there, and they slowed down. Can they find that early season form? I don't think so. I think that Maplesville wins at home, punches a ticket to the Final Four, and they play the Black Friday to try and get to a championship and still play for a Blue Mountain. It's going to be incredible stuff down in 1A, even though Wadley is the team to beat. Now let's take a look at the private school AISA championship games. And these will be played at the Cranton Bowl in Montgomery tonight as we're filming this on Thursday. When you see this on Friday, this will already have happened. So again, go check those scores out. You see how I did, because I always like to be right? First, Chambers Academy, a local team just up the road. They will play Lowndes Academy. The Rebels v. the Rebels. A lot of Rebels in private school. There's like 5 different Rebels that in the championship games we're looking at, right? Chambers Academy played Lowndes earlier this year. Chambers won 27-0. I think Chambers wins this game. Even though it's a championship game, it's hard to beat a team twice. I think Chambers gets it done against Lowndes Academy. Moving on now to 2A in AISA. It's the Abbeville Christian Generals taking on the Southern Choctaw Academy Rebels. I looked that up. I was like, oh, they're South Choctaw in 1A. Maybe they're close to each other. They're in like really West Alabama, in between Tuscaloosa and Mobile on the Mississippi border. Southern Choctaw is the defending champs. They play tough, hard-nosed football, and they beat Abbeville 72-22 last year in the playoffs. So I think Southern Choctaw wins that game. They played tough, and they're the defending champs. So until proven otherwise, they're going to be the champs. Moving on now down to the AISAA single A 7-man football, not flag football. It is the Macon East Knights taking on the Escambia Academy Cougars. Macon East beat Escambia for the first time in program history, 28-26. For the first time in school history this past season. And these are 2 rivals. They played each other every year, but hey, Macon East always gets it done. These are the top 2 teams in single A. I'm going to go with the upset. Give me Escambia Academy. I know that Macon East won earlier in the season, but I think that's going to motivate Escambia even more to say, hey, we own this team. Why are they beating us? And they're going to lock in, and they're going to pull out a big win for that one. So that was our look at the brackets between 6A through AISAA, but it is time to take a look at the last 2 games left for a Blue Mountain in 7A. First, we're going to talk about the competition potentially for the championship game. Central v. Thompson. Needs no introduction. These has been, 5 of the past 6 championship game matchups. The Red Devils, led by Bobby Coleman, yes, they have not looked playoff form the first couple rounds. Hoover hung around a good bit, made the adjustments. Central pulled well away. Fairhope, kept it close for the first half, first quarter. Central pulled away at halftime, make those adjustments, and that's what, because you have championship pedigree down in Phoenix City. But Thompson, who, hey, they won their region, but it was close, lost to Hoover. They are prepared to win, and you can tell. So look at their playoff box scores. Blew out Mary Montgomery, beat Carver by a couple scores. They are a team not to mess out with. It is going to be a lot of offense in this one down in Phoenix City. Trent Seaborn versus Bobby Coleman. That was physical wide receivers and DBs at Central trying to make plays. The physical O-line of Thompson trying to get in there and set the tone for this game. If I had to project this game, I feel like all season I would have said Central. And that's what my head is saying, because I think just they've been dominant. But they've slowed up playoffs. Thompson has turned it on. That's just what they do. This is what they've done for the past, 15, 20 years. Not even a traditional power, apparently. I found that out. But they've turned themselves into one. Give me Thompson going on the road and pulling an upset. I know Central Red Devil Stadium is a hard place to play. They're a good team. But Thompson during playoffs is just a absolute beast. And they get that one done. And now, looking at our last matchup, the Auburn Tigers and the Opelika Bulldogs, the 101st Auburn-Opelika game. And this is going to be one that could be incredibly bizarre and incredibly different than the first game. Kason Myers' health up in the air. He's a game-time decision tonight when you see this. And we could be seeing J.D. Pate tonight. J.D. and the Opelika quarterback played each other in the JV game earlier this season. Now they could play Opelika down to their third-string quarterback who can throw the ball, and that is because of his really, really good run game. Jordan Waits, Blake the Hammer Johnson, CJ Johnson. They have a very physical running back room. You have guys like Darius Whitlow on the offensive line. They can push the pile. They have a really solid secondary and defense as well. They are kind of like the Pittsburgh Steelers. They're going to hit you. They're going to be physical. I've really harped all season long about this physical Opelika defense. That's what they're going to do. That front seven is going to try and fight against this offensive line with guys like Trenton Pritchett trying to make a play on the offensive line. But I think it comes down to Auburn skill guys being better than the wide receivers and running backs at Opelika. I think guys like J.J. King is coming into playoff form, especially you're going to have to rely on him in case it's not able to go. Josh Askew, Antonio Welsh, Cash Reef, guys like that, or Levi Kelly even, can be playmakers and force this Opelika defense to play the entire length of the field and the entire width of the field, more rather, and be able to make a play and make a stop. Can they do that? I'm not really sure. I think Auburn rides the home crowd momentum. I think they know that the moment is big, and they've beaten Opelika 6 times in a row. It is storybook no matter who wins. If Auburn wins, they go and potentially have to either exercise the demons that are the Red Devils of Central or beat a Thompson team that they've never done so. The storyline is there. Meanwhile, for Opelika, you've lost 6 times in a row. What if in the biggest moment in rivalry history, in 101, you set the whole town ablaze and pull an upset, leave Duck Sanford Stadium with a win, and head to Birmingham in Protective Stadium to play one of those top 2 teams and deny Auburn their first ever state championship game? The storyline writes itself. Somebody get Michael Bay or, Quentin Tarantino down here, because this is a movie. This is going to be incredible. But I think at the end of the day, it's just Auburn being Auburn, man. Give me the Auburn Tigers. It's Auburn High School bracketology. Why would I pick against Auburn? Give me Auburn. I think no matter if it's, Kason Myers, if it's Jason Myers, if it's J.D. Pate, if it's KD, I don't care. Give me Auburn winning that one, putting it from 6 to 7 wins in a row against the Bulldogs, and they head to Birmingham with the possibility of their first ever state championship Blue Mountain Trophy in football coming home to Auburn. That fired me up, I'm sorry. But now it is time once again for our segment that we've been doing for playoffs and in memoriam to all the teams that lost this past week. So obviously you have Daphne. They lead the bunch this week. And you have a lot of our local teams have joined us. Handley, Elmore County, Lee Scott, all 4 Mobile schools. Russell County, a lot of our favorite teams, and specifically Lochapoka. The Polka pride still runs throughout every man, woman, and child that watches the AHS Bracketology and AHS mass media. And you know what? We thank those teams for their sacrifices, because now it is time to focus. And as the season ends and the Blue Mountain Championship trophy is on the line in the next 2 weeks, it's because of those teams that we've gotten here. But anyways, folks, thank you so much for watching. This has been AHS Bracketology. We'll be back to talk about championships. Potentially could be next week, but probably will be the week after, talking about breaking down the finalized bracket and the championship games across 7A through 1A. I'm Trip Upton, back for Keys of the Game and Game Day picks with Reese Kinder and James Tippins at AHS Countdown.
Hello everyone and welcome back to AHS Countdown. We're going to move right into our game picks now. We're going to start with the standings like we always do. Cherish is 13-5. I am 36-12. James is 46-8. Me and you both went perfect last week for our picks. But we only have 2 games on the slate this week. It's just the 2 7A Final 4 matchup games. And we're going to start with our first game. It is 11-1 Central versus 9-3 Thompson. James, who you have between Central and Thompson?
Yeah, Reese, you hit on it. You know, these are the best 4 teams, I think, left in 7A football. Did a great job. These teams are the best of the best. Starting with this one, Central versus Thompson. You know, these are 2 powerhouses. Feels like they meet every single time, either in the state championship or to make it to state. This one I'm gonna have to go with Central. You know, they haven't proven me anything that they can't win this game. Central has just defied all the odds, been the best offense in 7A, I think, up to this point. So I think Central gets it done tonight.
Yeah, and Central, you know, a very dynamic team. And I'm going to have to agree with you here. I think Central's going to be able to get the job done. And they're going to be going to Birmingham for the state championship. And it should be a really good matchup for whoever they play against, which is our next game, actually. It is 10-2 Auburn Tigers versus the 9-3 Opelika Bulldogs. James, who you have between Auburn and Opelika?
Yeah, this is written in the script. You know, Auburn Opelika to go to the state championship. Feels like a movie script, really does. But yeah, this one's going to be a great one. I expect it to be a defensive battle, you know, coming down to the wire, just like the game we played before. Maybe come down to an interception or something like that. I expect Auburn to win this game. It's going to be a scrappy one, a little indecisive on who's going to play quarterback next week, but whoever it is, I think they'll come out on top. Auburn will face Central in the state championship. Yeah,
I'm going to have to agree with you here. Auburn, you know, a very good team, even without Casey Myers. I think this is going to be a close game. I think it's going to be really coming down to almost a field goal at the end of this one. In 101st Auburn-Opelika rivalry, couldn't get any better than this for the 3rd round of the playoffs. And it's just going to be an exciting matchup, and I can't wait to commentate this one for Auburn-Opelika. This is going to be a fun one. But we're going to move now to our keys to the game segment. James, what's your key to the game for Auburn tonight?
Yeah, Reese, I hit on it earlier, but the quarterback has to play good. You know, when Casey Myers played earlier against Opelika, he threw for 245 yards and rushed for 87. You know, he also caught that touchdown. So that totaled out to be 343 total offensive yards. So to beat Opelika tonight, whoever the quarterback is, whether it's Casey Myers or J.D. Pate, they've really got to step up in the pass game and the run game, hitting those receivers downfield. But yeah, the quarterback play has to be good tonight if they're going to take down Opelika.
Yeah, and you know, right there you said it. I mean, if Auburn's able to do good in the quarterback play, then this could be a really good game for Auburn, and they will be moving on to state to face either Thompson or Central. But yeah, really interested to see who is at quarterback on Friday night. But my key for Opelika is you got to score early. You know, Opelika has had trouble scoring early on in games, and if they're able to score a lot of points, like we know how we saw at Vestavia Hills, if they're able to score a lot early on in the game, then this Bulldogs team's going to get a big win. But we'll just have to see what happens tonight against Auburn and Opelika. This should be a good one. But folks, that is going to do it for AHS Countdown. We hope you enjoy this matchup between the Auburn Tigers and the Opelika Bulldogs.